Oye, que nadie le diga a usted lo contrario, porque nosotros lo repetimos aquí en el lenguaje de ellos. Nosotros no somos segundos a nadie. Ustedes son segundos a nosotros, porque cuando ustedes llegaron aquí, ya aquí habían 11 estados que eran del gran pueblo mexicano. Eran 11 estados que eran parte del pueblo mexicano, que hoy son parte del pueblo americano. Que nadie nos diga que nosotros no estamos en la historia luchando por crear este país, lo que es poderoso. Nosotros o nos tratan como en igualdad, ¿ok? O si no, tenemos que seguir peleando, que no importa, tiene que seguir peleando. Nosotros vamos a seguir demandando el respeto de aquí, de cualquier punto. Y a Steve Living hay que llevarle una despedida de mariachi. Pues yo voy a acompañar a mi amigo aquí. Cojan el día, yo estoy ansioso por ir de Bronx a decirle adiós y que te vaya bien, pero aquí no te queremos a ti más y no queremos el que venga a reemplazarte. Tiene que respetar a la comunidad latinoamericana, el sofocante, el Long Island, y el mensaje es claro. El mensaje es claro. El que insulte a la comunidad latinoamericana respeto, o si no, maceta.
I told you, a living legend. Well, you've heard from the old. And briefly now, I know you guys have to get on with your proceedings, but it's important that the two gentlemen come up here now. They're both assemblymen. Can I ask Assemblyman Marcos Crespo to come up, and Francisco Moya? And I want you to take a close look at their faces. These guys aren't much older than you. Right? Anything is possible. Age is not a barrier. What country you come from is not a barrier. Being Latino is not a barrier. Right, so those who have aspirations, this is living proof that you can do it, and you can do it soon. Right, I'd like to introduce first Assemblyman Marcos Crespo from the Bronx.
Bienvenidos a todos, and forgive me for my voice. We've had a long conference, a long weekend, and a lot of discussions about important issues, and the karaoke didn't help either. So I'll be very brief, but just a few years ago, I was a student at John Jay College in Manhattan with no clear idea or ambition as to what I wanted to do. My family comes from labor. We were painters. I didn't know anything about wearing a suit and tie or being in a professional environment, but I took a chance and I did an internship. And I came here to the New York State Assembly and I interned for a young man named Ruben Diaz Jr. The internship opportunity afforded me a chance to get to know so many elected officials. State Senator Diaz then needed an assistant. I took the job. It was less money than I was making painting, but it wasn't about the money, it was about the opportunity. For 5.5 years I worked for him, and next thing you know, without any ambitions for political office, Ruben Diaz Jr. runs for Bronx Borough President, and now there's a vacancy in my neighborhood in Soundview, the Bronx. And there was a chance for me to run. So what I'm getting at is this: sometimes some of you may not have a clear idea as to what you want to do. What I'm here to tell you, it's okay. Yes, it's great if you have a plan and a vision, but if you don't, just give yourselves a chance. Give yourselves an opportunity. Take your academics seriously, and not just what you learn in the classroom, but how you spend your time outside the classroom. Because everything you do today is shaping who you will be tomorrow. And let me leave you with this. As far as diversity, I want you to do some homework. The census numbers that came out, look at them. Understand how the Latino community is growing, not just in the 5 boroughs, but in every corner of this state. Right now, when I sit in my chamber seat, in a regular session, there are only 11 of us out of 150 that are Latino. And that is not an accurate representation of where we are in our communities. So think about that as you're sitting and debating. Don't trivialize this opportunity, because sooner rather than later, we need this chamber to look a lot more like what I can see here today than what I see on a regular session day. And by the way, you could clap to that. as far as our diversity, I was born in Puerto Rico, but my father's from Peru. Are you any Peruvians here? Peruano. So, yes, I'm mixed, and I love both of my cultures, and I lived in Peru, and I lived in Puerto Rico, and I studied in both, and I studied here in New York, and I'm proud of my culture. Keep that in mind, no matter what you do, no matter where you go, your culture defines you in many ways, and that's something we need to be proud of, never ashamed of. Keep up the good work, que Dios los bendiga.
In closing, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, who has worked side by side with me to make this conference a success. He is the co-chair of this conference, and that is Ecuadoriano. Any Ecuadorians here? Assemblyman Francisco Moya.
Thank you, Phil. I truly appreciate it. It's an honor to be co-chairing this wonderful event. I am also a first. I am the first Ecuadorian to ever be elected to public office, not just in the state of New York, but the entire country. And I started out very young, just like all of you. I actually sat in one of these mock sessions. But I always knew what I wanted to do. I always believed that if you really truly wanted to get into public service, you had to roll up your sleeves and you had to get involved. And I had an internship by a great, fiery, dynamic, young, Latina trailblazer by the name of Congresswoman Nydia Velázquez. And she gave me my first start. She said, "You want a job?" She called me on a Thursday. She said, "You got to be here in Washington on Monday." And I left. Left my family. My dad bought me a one-way ticket on a Greyhound bus. I slept in her office for about a week because I had nowhere to stay. But it was a commitment that I made early on about what I wanted to do. And I stayed there. I worked for 2 members of Congress. I worked for Congresswoman Velázquez, and I worked for a congressman by the name of Brad Sherman from California. I spent a lot of time up there. I came back. I was actually the secretary to the Senate. I was the highest-ranking Latino to hold that position when David Paterson was the leader in the Senate. And then this time around, took a chance and I ran for public office. I sit in that seat where that young lady is sitting right there. And it's a very historic room that you're in, because you have to appreciate the people who have been here, the trailblazers that you saw speak ahead of us. It really opened the doors for young guys like me, like Marcos, my other colleague, Roberto Rodriguez, who's here as well, and gave us an opportunity for us to come and make changes, and make history. We passed a historic budget here the other day. We stood here till about 1:30 in the morning. But we did it, and it was tough. There's a lot of hard choices that affect all of you, and a lot of people are going to be hurting for that. But we had to do it. And we did it because we have a commitment to serve this state. And the one thing that you need to take away from this is the belief in what you're doing is the right thing. Public service is an honorable profession. And this is your opportunity right here to really make your mark in this chamber, but also in what you do in the future. We're living proof that we can be a lot of firsts. We also want to open the doors for all of you who one day will replace us here in this chamber. It is an honor for me to stand up here today, co-chairing this event, and being here in front of all of you young, dynamic, future leaders of this great state of New York. I want to thank you. I want you to enjoy this and really appreciate this session that you're gonna take. And please count on all of our support throughout the day. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, it's time to rock and roll. May the proceedings begin, and let me hear you say, "Es pa'lante que vamos."